Hello everybody, it's Karen McLaughlin here, certified personal trainer in Hamilton, Ontario. Sorry I'm a couple of minutes late today for my Tuesday at 2 p.m. broadcast. I had a couple of technical issues and was trying really hard not to throw my phone against the wall. But here I am. So let's get started with the topic for today. Today I'm going to talk about foot health. And I know most of you are probably, it's one of the last things on your mind when you think of what your health concerns or fitness concerns might be. But it's something that I've been learning an awful lot about in the past 6 or 8 months. It's been one of my little mini obsessions in the health and fitness arena. And I've read like everything I can get my hands on about foot health. And I have to tell you, we all need to be paying attention to the health of our feet. And the thing is, as humans, we pretty much don't pay attention to any of our body parts too much until they start bugging us. So until we actually have a problem with our feet where they're hurting us, we usually don't even really think about them at all. And poor little devils are so hardworking. They do a lot for us and they're so unappreciated. I'm sure most of us women can relate. Anyway, so I just want to give you a few quick tips today to start improving your foot health. Most of these things are actually pretty easy to do. So, and the reason I picked right now to talk about this is May is actually Foot Health Month here in Canada. So I thought, well, now's a good time. Actually, here it was Foot Health Month in April in the US, so that's very confusing. But anyway, we're going to talk about feet. And I can't really overemphasize what I just said about how important your foot health is to your overall health. I was at a full weekend intensive workshop a few weeks ago that was all about alignment and corrective and restorative exercise and that kind of stuff. And one of the biggest takeaway messages that we got from that workshop was it all starts with your feet. So we really need to pay more attention to our feet. So hopefully I've convinced you enough that you're going to stick around and listen to hear what you can do. So there's quite a few things that we can do to improve the health of our feet. And if you think, oh, there's nothing wrong with my feet, there probably is. Unfortunately, if you live in a culture where you've been wearing shoes since you were very young, your feet are not going to be optimally healthy. Our feet are actually meant to have as much function as our hands, if you can imagine that. So think about how your feet can move compared to how your hands can move, and then that might make you start to clue in a little bit to how dysfunctional our feet are typically in modern day culture. And 1 in 4 women apparently will develop debilitating, debilitating foot pain in their lifetime. 1 in 4. So if it hasn't happened to you yet, the odds are that, it well may. But if you adopt so they're having an impact on a lot of your body movements and a lot of your body tissues. So if they're not optimally healthy, it's going to affect a lot of other parts of your body as well. Okay? Hey everybody, I'm back again. Sorry about that. I don't know what's going on. I wasn't even on Wi-Fi and I said I wasn't getting a wireless connection. Sorry, life is full of technical issues today. Anyway, back to our feet. And I totally just lost my train of thought because I was wrestling with my phone. Okay, 6 things that you can do to improve the health of your feet starting today. So the first one, and this is going to be probably the least popular, especially with the ladies, but it's one of the most important, and that is to change the shoes that you're wearing. So most of our shoes don't really meet any of the criteria for a shoe that would optimally support foot health. So there's 3 things you want to look for in a shoe that makes it good for your feet. One is that it's flat, so no heel. And a lot of people assume that a shoe that doesn't literally have a heel, like, you know, a high heel or a visible heel that you can see that's detached from the rest of the sole of the shoe, is flat. But that's very far from the case. And in fact, a lot of big offenders are sneakers. And I'm just going to hold this one up for you. Hopefully, there we go. So can you guys see how this shoe is far from flat? Your heel, if you're wearing this shoe, which is unfortunately my shoe, if you're wearing this shoe, your heel is going to be elevated much more than your toe. And that's exactly what we don't want. We want the heel and the toe to be level. So that's one thing. Another thing, and you can't really see this as well right now, but if the shoe were on the ground, you could see how the toe actually, I'm going to overemphasize it, but the toe curls up a little bit at the end, and that's also a bad thing. And unfortunately, both these features with a thick heel at the back and this little toe curl up at the end, very, very, very common in athletic wear today. So those are not good things. So this is how you really, like, you know, it's different from having, actually, here I'll show you. So this is a heel. This is an obvious heel on this shoe, right? What we would call an obvious heel. This is an example of about absolutely the worst shoe ever you could possibly wear. And the only reason I keep these babies around is just as an example of what not to do. So this shoe has obviously quite a heel. So your heel is much higher than your toe. Another thing that makes a shoe good or not is how flexible the sole. It should be thin and flexible. This is very thin, but you know, I can't, this thing is going nowhere. It's really super hard, okay? So it bends a little bit this way, but it's very, very rigid, so that's no good. The third thing is you want the toe box, which is the part of, and this shoe actually isn't so bad in this regard, but the toe box, which is the part of the shoe where your toe actually hangs out here, should be nice and wide. You should be able to spread your toes a little bit and wiggle them around a little bit if the toe box is wide enough. Because when you step forward, when you're putting weight on your foot, your toes should actually be able to separate a bit, believe it or not. But especially as ladies, we stuff ourselves into these very, very tight shoes, so our feet literally can't move at all in there, and that is just no good. So, so that was three things. We wanted flat, we wanted a thin, flexible sole, and we wanted a nice wide toe box. The other thing about this shoe that makes it terrible, so it doesn't have any, well, I mean, I guess it isn't restricting, you know, the movement of your toes here because there's nothing around here, but it's actually damaging your toes in another way, and that is this shoe does not attach to your foot fully, right? Like it's like a flip-flop, so it's flopping around, and that's actually making your toes do some pretty bad stuff. So no open sandals or flip-flops, unfortunately, ladies, if you want to have health. I mean, if you want to throw them on and just sit around in them and look decorative, you know, that's okay. So if you're going to party and you're not actually going to do anything in them, alright, but you can wear them for fashion once in a while, but you should definitely not be walking on a regular basis in anything like this, okay? So, what is a better shoe choice? I'm just going to show you, you can spend a lot of money on really fancy, like what they call quote-unquote barefoot shoes, and they're crazy expensive, most of them. So I'm going to show you what the good old Converse Chuck Taylors are a good step towards that. They're still not perfect, but they're a lot better than many shoes you can get, and the other pluses, these are pretty widely available, and you're not going to feel self-conscious wearing them. They don't have like separate toes or anything like that. Not all barefoot shoes have separate toes. So if you're thinking, I'm never going to wear those weird 5-toed shoes, you don't have to. But wouldn't it be fun if we all did? Anyway. So the Converse is, you can see, actually even this one still, the toe goes up a tiny bit at the top. But it's way better than most. So it's pretty flat. And it has a thinner and somewhat more flexible sole than many of the other shoes. Like my other sneaker, I can't bend it like that. No, see, it's not going anywhere. So it is flatter, more flexible. Now, the toe box is the only thing that I wish was a little different for the Converse. It's a little narrow. So especially if you have wide feet, this may not be the greatest for you. My husband has pretty wide feet and he can kind of just squeeze himself into a pair of these, but it's best for people who are narrow-footed for sure. So for me, I have really, really super skinny feet, and I usually have trouble finding shoes that are wide enough. So for me, this is actually nice to find something that's narrow enough for me. And for me, even though like the toe box is a little bit narrow, but this is something, you know, that you can use as sort of a transition between, like, you know, on your way from this, you know, this is a good step. I do want to caution people though, like if you wear heels a lot already, especially like, you know, this kind of thing, or even spikier and taller, you do not want to go, if that's like your typical shoe that you wear most of the time is very high heeled, don't go right to this or it's going to be killer. So wherever you're at now, what you want to do is transition gradually to a less and less and less heeled shoes, okay? So start where you are and just gradually cut your, you know, I mean, I don't think there's any precise measurement, but, you know, if you usually wear like 3-inch heels, go down to 2 or 1.5 or something, you know, just work your way down, because although what I just described is optimal for a shoe, what has to happen is all your foot musculature, your ankle musculature, your calf musculature all has to adapt to that new, you know, it's used to what you're wearing already. It's not optimal for you. It's not, your muscles aren't optimally healthy right now, but you have to give them time to adapt to any changes. So please don't get like all inspired and run out and go spend $200 on a pair of barefoot shoes and start wearing them all over the place when you're used to wearing 2 or 3-inch heels all the time. That's going to be a recipe for disaster. So the key here is very gradual transition. And what I've been doing is just because it's, you know, you don't want to throw your whole shoe wardrobe out and spend like tons and tons of money all at once on new shoes. So please don't do that either. I've just been gradually replacing my shoes as I need a new pair. And really, if you're going to spend a lot of money on those types of shoes too, you do want to do some research, because not every shoe is right. Not some brands that some people think are great, it might be great for them, but it's not right for your foot. So take your time with this, but do your best to just get out of super high heels and super tight, like the toe box part, how narrow the top is, you can start changing that right away. So if you're wearing super pointy, narrow shoes, really, you can definitely go get some much wider shoes. I know some of you ladies are like, oh, they're not sexy, but neither is hobbling all the time because you can't walk anymore, because you've ruined your feet. And, you know, as I said, it's going to affect the health of your entire body. So healthy is sexy, ladies. So healthy feet. So that's the whole shoe scene. That's just sort of the quick and dirty ways to think about it. But the short story is start working towards less heels. Okay, and wider toe boxes. Basically, your feet should be feeling happy and comfortable in the shoes you're wearing, and if they're not, then you need to start changing them. And, well, there's a caveat to that. If you've really gotten used to those shoes I said are no good and they do feel comfortable to you, then you still should try and change them. Ironically, the ones that are healthier for you are going to feel less comfortable for a while. I was talking to somebody who was used to wearing heels a lot, and she's trying to transition down, and to her it feels uncomfortable. But it's because, you know, her calf and her ankles are used to the angle that's created when she's wearing that heel. So she's starting to lower she's starting to change that angle of where her heel's hanging out, and so her body doesn't really like it. And that's why you need to do it very gradually so you don't hurt yourself. Okay, but eventually you're going to be at a a point where your body can actually get into the proper alignment it's meant to be in. Okay, so that's a longer term project, but like I said, you can start to change some things around right away. And please don't wear flip-flops. And I'm saying this like I lived in flip-flops for like I don't know how many summers, and this is actually going to be my first summer. It's like since last summer that I've really gotten into the whole foot health thing, and this is going to be my first summer without my flip-flops that I love. So that's going to be a hard one. But actually, I'm going to post, there's a little tutorial that's really cute about how to make you can take your flip-flops and kind of make them into a gladiator sandal using like torn up t-shirts. And they look kind of cute. So I'm going to do that with a couple pairs of my flip-flops so I can keep my feet nice and free and open. But basically it's going to make it so the flip-flops actually, attach to you so it's not flopping on and off anymore. Okay? So that was the first thing, was shoes. That's probably the most complicated of them all I started with. So the next thing that you can do to improve your foot health is walk barefoot more often, or just live in bare feet more often is an easier way to say it, I guess. I don't mean to like go walking around the block in your bare feet necessarily, unless you live in a really cool neighborhood where you're not going to get stared at. But I know people who just like practically never have bare feet. They're in their shoes all day at work, and they come home and they have house shoes. Some people have house shoes or like really structured slippers that are almost like shoes. They're practically never in bare feet except for when they're sleeping. So you need to start letting your feet out. Let out of their little shoe prisons. Like basically that's what a shoe is, like really a little prison for your foot. That's why it can't, you're thinking, how can your foot possibly move like your hand? You can't imagine that. But we've kept our feet in these little shoebox prisons for their whole life, and so they kind of get frozen. And that's why they can't function the way they should anymore. So going barefoot as much as you can be really helpful in getting your feet to start allowing them the space to move around more the way they naturally would, because your feet can't move in any kind of shoe the way they can in bare feet. And I'm just going to say a little caveat here is to anybody who's watching this, if you do have any diagnosed foot health issues, if you're diabetic or you have a diagnosed foot problem, or you've been wearing orthotics for like 20 years, what I'm saying here today may or may not apply to you. So for people who any of those criteria apply, I would really like you to check with your healthcare practitioner before you start doing any of these things, because there is always an exception to the rule. So if you do have either you're diabetic or you have known foot health issues, some of these things may or may not apply to you. Okay, so check in with your healthcare provider. But for just average everyday person whose feet seem fine to them, all this stuff is good. Okay, so barefoot as much as you can, like around the house, in your backyard. If you can walk barefoot on your grass and stuff, that's awesome. So just really, like I know when I'm out gardening, we're just starting to hit gardening season, as long as I'm not using like shovels and stuff where I might like cut my toe off or something, but if I'm just like pulling weeds and stuff like that in the garden, I usually work in the garden barefoot, and I try to squat a lot of the time instead of kneeling, because that's my feet are getting a little workout, and a lot of my lower body's getting a workout when I do that. So there's a little bonus tip. So anyway, barefoot as much as you comfortably and safely can. Okay, so that's number 2. The third thing that you might want to do, and this is something I've been doing for 2 or 3 months now, is use what's called toe spacers. So there's different types of toe spacers, and basically the purpose of all of them is to actually separate your toes. So most of us, our toes are, especially except for me, because this is our big toe, it's usually over here, and then the rest of our toes for most people are fairly jammed together, because we've stuffed them into shoes and they've gotten crunched like that. And some people even have like hammer toe, like deformed, their toes aren't straight anymore because shoes have been shoving them around. So I'm gonna see, I've got my alignment socks on right now, and I'm gonna see if I can move this video to show you guys. I'm not the best at doing this. Yeah. You guys are getting dizzy, I'm sorry. I don't know what's giving you the best look at this, if anything. I can't see my own pose on here. Alright, I don't know whether that worked at all. I'm gonna take it off and hold it up so you can see what it looks like when it's not on my foot. So this is what they look like when I'm not wearing them. So it's a sock where at the end it's just spaces for your toes to go through. And so these pieces hold your toes apart. Okay. So that's why that's the idea, toe spacers. It's literally spacing your toes out. Now, you can get these on Amazon if you if you search for, well, either Google it or go onto Amazon and search for alignment socks. ALIGNMENT, alignment socks. And they're, the ones I just showed you, they're very inexpensive. They're about $6 or so, I think, if memory serves. You can get, these ones, the fabric isn't like super amazing. They've pilled up quite a bit on me already. But really, like, the part that really matters is whether the spacers are holding up, and that part is. So if you want prettier ones, there's certainly more expensive ones that you can get, and I've heard that sometimes you can find them at places like Winners and stuff like that too. I don't go there very much, but I've heard through the grapevine. Anyway, so these are great because they're something that you can do passively. So you can put these on, and you certainly don't wear them inside of your shoes. They're just meant for sitting around in, like if you're sitting around watching TV, sitting around reading a book. I wear them almost every week when I'm doing my Facebook Live videos. I wear them in bed when I'm reading. So, anytime you just kind of got downtime when you're not going to be moving around that much, you can walk in them, like just a little bit around the house, a few steps, but they do feel weird to walk in, so I prefer to use them just when I'm going to be sitting around. The caution with these is you do want to go slow. Just like with changing your footwear, you want to wear these just for a very few minutes every day to start out with. I actually, of like 3 or 4 days after I got mine, I accidentally fell asleep in bed. Like I was just taking, I thought, a quick little reading break and before dinner, and I put them on, and I thought, I'm just going to read for 20 minutes, and I was so sleepy. I just crashed out and woke up an hour and a half later, and my feet were very unhappy. So you do need to go slow with them. Probably only 5 minutes or so the first time you wear them. You will, if you leave them on long enough that you're too long, your feet are going to let you know eventually. But just work up, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I can wear them for an hour or two now, and they're not bothering me. Eventually, I know people wear them all night while they're sleeping in bed, and that's sort of what I'm working up to. I'm probably going to be ready to do that fairly soon, I think. So it's just, these are something, you don't need to make any extra time in your day to do this. You don't have to do anything special. It's just throw these on, and they'll start widening your toes out. So, and it's interesting because you really, the first time you wear these, you're like, what the heck's going on? Like, it feels very bad. And, well, I shouldn't say very bad, but it feels like your feet are going, what the heck are you making us do? And now, when I put them on, I don't really notice anything in particular until I leave them on for a couple hours, and then my feet go, hey, I think we're done. Anyway, so that's a very inexpensive thing you can try. Number 3 is, actually no, yeah, that was number 3. 3, sorry. Number 2 was walk barefoot. Number 3 was use toe spacers. Number 4, something you can do with your feet is to start massaging them a little bit with some balls. You can buy different types of balls, and it's good to have a variety so you can stimulate your feet in a few different ways. These both the ones I'm holding here are fairly solid. Like you can see, I'm squeezing that pretty hard. It's not squishing. So these are both quite firm. This is like a rubber lacrosse ball, and this is I don't even know what they call it. It's a spiky ball. I got this at Fitness Depot. They have all kinds of things like this. This one's very hard though as well. So if you've never done anything like this before, you might want to start with something that's a little has a little bit more give to it, is a little softer. And one thing I've been told is I haven't gone and gotten any of these for myself yet, but there's a ball called a Pinky Ball at Mastermind Toys, of all places, that is supposed to be $2 or $3, like, so very inexpensive. And they're about this size, but they have much more squish to them. So it's a good option for people who are just starting to explore their feet a little bit. So what you want to do, you can try just a base. If you have tennis balls kicking around, a tennis ball will do the trick too, and it's not as hard as this either. So any type of little ball like that, what you want to do is just run it, anytime you're standing, you can, or even sitting at a desk, you can just roll the ball under your feet. And it's good to make sure that you're hitting all the, I know I have a tendency to just kind of go under, like right under the middle of my foot and kind of the main part of my arch a lot, which is good, but you want to like try and get both the inside and the outside edges too. And you can do this while you're working, but sometimes it's good to just do it while you're not doing anything too, and you can do it really mindfully and really notice where the sore spots are in your feet, if there are any. I know I was quite shocked when I started doing this, and I found how many tender points there were in my feet, because I'm one of those people who has not worn shoes a lot for many years. When I'm trying to go barefoot, and I encourage them to go barefoot if they're comfortable, and so I don't wear shoes typically as part of my regular work day too much even, and around the house I go barefoot, I walk around the yard barefoot, so, and for years I've been doing that, so I thought, my feet can't be in that bad of shape. Well, surprise, they might be, in better shape than some people's, but they still have a ways to go. So, get a variety, like if you can get a variety of different types of little balls, it's good, because this leads me to my next point, which is different textures are good for your feet, okay? So, we've got very smooth here, this is spiky, and then you can go, these are both hard, the other balls are squishier, the Pinky Balls. So the fifth point here for foot health is to provide different textures to your feet. So when you had little kids and you had like those like different touch boxes and stuff where you'd put beans in one and rice in one, like all kinds of different things that kids could touch, that were different types of tactile experiences. It's basically the same idea, except for you want to be giving that to your feet. If you think about back when man was first roaming the earth and we were doing it barefoot, and we would be walking over all kinds of different textures all the time, tree roots or rocks and just dirt and grass and all kinds of stuff. So we naturally got exposed to lots of different textures and unevenness as well in those textures. Because the thing about modern living is we're mostly on like smooth, level concrete or asphalt is what we're walking on most of the time. And our feet really need stimulation, so that all the bone, so I can do that with my hands too, where you can bend your hands in all kinds of different ways. Well, your feet do that, should be able to do that too, and they don't do it that easily right now because you haven't let them. But so this is the idea behind getting more texture in. So some things you can do is one, have different textures to stand on around the house. And so I keep all this stuff by my standing workstation. I've talked a lot about my standing workstation, so most of you guys know about that already, but if you don't have a standing workstation yet, you should make one, because you don't want to be sitting all day. But so I keep my little rolling balls nearby, so when I'm reading email, I can be rolling out my feet. This here is a balance disc, so I use this for a lot of different things when I'm training people, but you can see how like this side is smooth, this side is spiky. So the spiky side is great for providing more texture. So I just stand with one or both feet on this for a little while sometimes. And the nice thing about this is it's a bit, I don't know whether you can tell, yeah, you can see how it's a bit squishy, like it's not super firm. So when I'm standing on it with my feet, I can kind of like poke my toe, grab my toes into it, so it gives more stimulation there as well. So those are good. And again, you can get stuff like this at any kind of major fitness sort of superstore place online. And the other thing is when you're actually out walking around, look for texture. So it's a lot easier when you're out hiking trails and stuff out in nature, right? Because, like I said, there's tree roots, you've got dirt paths, there's all kinds of different things you can encounter when you're walking in a more natural environment. I live in a major urban center, city of 500,000 people, so I'm walking through the city a lot. But ever since I started looking for more opportunities of different surfaces to walk on, I've been surprised by how even in like a major urban setting, I can find different types of surfaces to walk on. So, gravel parking lots, mulched areas. I mean, I'm not talking about like walking on people's private lawns and stuff like that. Please don't do that. But I'm just talking about like public areas, but with different surfaces. So every time I'm like walking along, I just look, is there like a grassy strip beside the concrete sidewalk that would be safe for me to walk on? Certainly, sometimes it's not safe to do that if it's too close to the edge of the street and there's a lot of traffic. It might not be the best choice. You do want healthy feet, but you don't want to get yourself killed in pursuit of healthy feet. So, but, more often than I would have thought, there can be interesting options for things to walk on if you start looking for them. And another thing you can do for at home is to make a little river rock station to stand on, and all you need to do that is get like a boot tray, just the regular one you could get any hardware store that you throw your winter boots on in it for them to drip onto. So you want something that has a nice lip on it of 1.5 inches or so around the edges, and then you just fill that with river rocks that you can get like at a craft supply store, places like that. And then you just put that, if you spend a lot of time in the kitchen, which I do, you should all be spending a lot of time in the kitchen chopping your vegetables, so that's a great place to put something like this, so you can use it every day. And you may find, again, just like any of these other things, you might not be able to stand on it for very long. The first couple, it might be like 30 seconds or a minute, you're like, okay, I'm done with this. And then the next time you do it a little bit longer. Before you know it, you're standing on it for 20 minutes or so. But the river rocks are great because it's a very uneven surface for your feet to stand on. And you can even like play around with like, grabbing them rocks with your toes and flipping them around and stuff. So it's a very simple, inexpensive little foot playing station to set up. And I think it also brings a kind of little element of nature into your house too, so I think that's fun as well. So there's all kinds of different ways you can set things up to bring more texture to your feet throughout your day. And anytime you can do that with bare feet, any of those things is awesome. And, but also looking for the opportunities when you're out walking. And the closer you are to the ideal shoe that I described at the beginning, the more benefit you're going to get, because when you're in a thin, flexible sole, for example, your feet are actually going to be able to feel that texture that's underneath you much more than they could if you're in a very rigidly structured shoe. That's one of the ways you can tell whether your shoe is thin and flexible soled enough is like if you can walk on concrete and grass and rocks and mulch and like 9 different surfaces, and your feet can't really tell the difference between any of those things in the shoe that you're in, then it's not a very good shoe in terms of foot health. Okay, so it is really, and I notice as I have moved to thinner, more flexible sole, it is much more satisfying to walk on different textures because you really can feel them a lot more. So that's nice. I know there was one more thing I'm going to say, that was because different textures was number 5, and final one. Silly me, I'm a personal trainer, and I almost forgot that point number 6 is do foot exercises. You would have thought I would have remembered that one. Yeah, so you can actually do a lot of different exercises specifically for your feet, and a couple of my friends have been like, are you kidding me? Like, I already spend so much time doing exercises for everything else. You want me to exercise my feet now too? Are you nuts? But the thing about the foot exercises is a lot of them you can just do while you're doing other stuff. It doesn't have to take any more time out of your day. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to link you guys up when I'm done here to one of my fellow personal trainers who's a restorative exercise specialist as well and has done a lot of stuff with foot health. She has a really nice little free email series on foot health where she'll send you a few videos of good foot exercises to do, and she's probably a lot better at demonstrating them than I would be. So I'm not going to try and do it here because, as you saw earlier, I'm not really good at trying to figure out the camera angles on this. But a couple of them are very simple. So I can show you with my hand, maybe. You're just going to basically lift your big toe. If my index finger is my big toe, you're just going to lift your big toe off the ground and leave the other ones down. And you hold that for as long as you can, and then you put it down. And then you do it again. This is an isometric foot exercise. And actually, it's very, it looks so simple with the finger, but I have been doing it I haven't been consistent about doing it every day, but it's been like a couple months since I started doing it, and I still cannot get my big toe off the ground without holding my other toes down. So I have some major issues there. Like, ideally, we should be able to move each of our toes, I can't even do it with my fingers, individually. Every toe should move by itself, independent of the other ones, and my feet are so far from that, I can't even tell you. So I have a long way to go with my own foot health, but I noticed all these little changes, it just, my feet are feeling better and better. So it's a bit of a journey. It's because, think about it, if you're, I'm in my mid-40s, and up until fairly recently I hadn't been paying attention to any of this stuff, and so even though I wasn't wearing shoes that often relative to many people, but I was going for long walks in shoes that were very suboptimal and that kind of stuff, so I was locking my feet in a little box. So the second part of this exercise, the first part is hold the big toe up, and like I said, you can, if you need to, and I did, some of you might even need to hold down the rest of your toes with one hand and even help your big toe with the other hand. Don't be surprised if at least at first you might need to do that. And then you put it back down, and then you're going to leave the big toe down and lift all the other ones up. Oh, and here comes my cat to check out my Facebook Live. Sorry about that. I'm really not trying to make a cat video, really. Okay, so big toe down, other toes up is the second step. And you just hold that, and then you bring them down. And for me, again, I find I can't get them up without, the big toe starting to move, so I just hold the big toe in place and then I can lift the other ones. So it's just playing around with that. Hold the big toe down, hold the other toes up and down. So it's a very simple thing you can do. So again, if you're just, talking on the phone to a friend or any kind of random thing, if you're, sometimes I'll like sit and read a book and hold the book with this hand, and I'll be doing toe exercises on one foot. I'll be sitting on the floor so that I can bend one foot up and do toe exercises, and then I just switch. So you can certainly do other activities while you're doing that, and that's sort of just the, between the doing all those like sort of foot massage type things and doing that exercise I just described, that's a really good start at how to exercise your feet a little bit, to start building the musculature back and regaining your neuromuscular control, because a lot of that being able to move the toes, your brain hasn't been connecting with those muscles in the right way for a long time. So part of any learning to do any new exercise, no matter what body part you're doing it with, is you have to build strength and mobility in that area, but you also have to reconnect your brain. You have to get there's neurological things that have to be happening too. So this takes time. It's not instantaneous, but if you keep at it, it will get better, and eventually, I am assured by people who've been doing this for a long time, that eventually you will be able to actually lift your big toe up by itself without holding down any of your other toes. I'm still waiting for that day myself, but I hear it will happen. So that is, I think, the 6 things. So 1 was change your footwear. 2 was walk barefoot as much as you can in safe areas where you're not going to hurt yourself. 3 was using toe spacers like alignment socks. 4 was doing massage with the ball. 5 was providing your feet with different textures, so standing and walking on different textures like the river rocks, or looking for grass or gravel or just different things to walk on, or things like the standing on stuff like this. So texture, and 6 was the foot exercises that I'm going to link you up to. I'm going to link you up to a post. There's not a direct link on her blog to the course, but I'm going to link you to a post where if you scroll down to the bottom, there will be a spot to click to sign up for the course. So it's, I think it's a series of 5 or 6 emails. They're really informative. I think you'll really like it. Okay, so hopefully that's got you guys started thinking about some things you can do to improve the health of your feet. And most of these things are pretty easy to do, right? So I'm like, no time like the present. Jump right in, find something weird some weird texture to walk on, and start getting out there and doing it. It's really kind of rewarding, because your feet will thank you. And I find like doing stuff like this, it's really reconnected me to my feet, because as I said at the beginning, most of us don't think about our feet hardly at all until they start hurting us. And they are really just integral to almost all the movements that we do. So they're super, super, super important. And just it doesn't even really take time, but taking the thought to do, once you've got all this stuff set up, it sort of happens, like, I just do it, right? Like, I'm in the habit of doing it, and I'm just doing it while I'm doing other stuff. But it does actually sort of, reconnect you to your feet in a way that you probably haven't been up until now, because you haven't been thinking about them. So I think that's really cool, and I think it's really important, and I hope you guys have a lot of fun playing with all this stuff with your feet. And if you have any questions, as always, please either leave a comment, private message me, email me at yourfitnessgroove@gmail.com, or, however you send me messages by Morse code. I don't know, actually don't do that, because I don't know how to interpret it. But I'm always happy to answer any questions. And you know, if you start working on this stuff, I'd love to hear how it goes. Like I'm so happy when I hear feedback from people about their experiences with these things. So anything you want to share when you start giving this stuff a try, I'm always happy to hear about that too. Okay, so I think that is actually it for this week. And oh, last thing I wanted to mention for anybody who didn't know, I finally have a YouTube channel like I have been promising. So all my previous videos are now on my YouTube channel, and I'm committing to uploading the new ones within 24 hours. So I'll have this one up by sometime tomorrow at the latest. So now you can go back. I've got them all, they're properly labeled so you can find whatever you're looking for. I think this is my 19th video already. I can't quite believe it. So I've, got videos on quite a wide range of topics at this point. So chances are, if you have some kind of fitness conundrum or you're struggling with something, working on your fitness goals, I probably have a video about it. So please go check that out, and all you have to do is go to YouTube and search for Your Fitness Groove and you will find it. And then if you want to make sure you don't miss any of the new uploads, you can subscribe to the channel and you'll get notified automatically when I put anything new up in case you miss some of my Facebook Lives. Okay? So guys, I think that is it for this week. So go forth and have happier feet, and I will see you same time and place next week. Stay healthy and have happy feet. Okay, bye for now.